What is going on, everyone? Keeping the trend going. I just dropped that Game Boy Advance video, and you know your boy's gotta come out and drop another banger on you guys. And this is a phone I actually didn't even have yet until like 2 months ago. Not even 2 months ago, bro, like a month and a half. And I never owned this phone personally. I barely even held one outside of the Apple store. But then I finally got my hands on it and your boy cracked it, but it's all good. The content is still the same. So we're going to be looking at the iPhone 8 Plus and seeing how it holds up in the later part of 2018. Now, I really wish I was able to make this video earlier this year, but who cares? There's a lot of new different things that have changed, and it's pretty much like a whole new playing ground of just iOS devices and just phones in general. So let's just see how this phone holds up, not only hardware-wise, but also software-wise and all those cool things. So starting off, as you guys know, this phone came out in 2017 of September, the same time the iPhone 8 was released and the same time as the iPhone 10. And in my opinion, I kind of found that the release of the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus was kind of weird just because we had the iPhone 10 that was released as well. And that brought a whole new body, and that was being released like in November, or it was coming out after September, after the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. So I felt kind of bad for the 8 Plus because it was already kind of outdated once the iPhone 10 came out and the iPhone 8 Plus prices went down even more. So that was really weird, but it's all good, I guess, now. It was kind of bad for the people reselling the iPhone 8 Pluses to get an iPhone 10, but it was kind of good for everyone else who could pick up an iPhone 8 Plus for even cheaper. Now, looking on the outside, obviously it does have the outer outdated kind of look a little bit. It looks a little bit old, I'm not going to lie. A lot of bezel, a lot of unnecessary space taken up on the screen. But I'll be honest, a lot of people might like this type of design, and I personally kind of like it too. The only thing is with the back, I honestly, like even with the iPhone XS and XS Max and the 10, I never liked the glass on the back. And here's just another example. I mean, it's just so easy to crack. And I think the iPhone 7 Plus design was perfect. I think the jet black on the iPhone 7 Plus was amazing. I understand why they put glass on the back. It's just to put wireless charging through and everything, but it's just kind of a one more thing to break on a phone. And I don't think feeling it feels as good as like the jet black version of the 7 Plus. That thing was perfect. And you're not so much worried about breaking that like on the iPhone 8 Plus, you are. And the crazy thing is that this phone is still very expensive to fix on the back. I think it still costs a couple $100s to fix the back of this phone. And it's weird, to fix the back costs more than fixing the front, but it doesn't affect the functionality of this phone at all. So you could go look online for a used iPhone 8 Plus with the cracked back and get a really good deal on it as long as you put a case on it and if you don't care about the back being cracked. But that is one of those like little sneaky things you could do to get even more off of 8 Plus. But that is pretty much enough looking on the outside. Obviously, we have the dual camera setup, Touch ID 2, and no headphone jack, but that really doesn't bother me anymore. But it might bother you, who knows? Now, looking specifically more at the screen, it is 5.5 inches, it's 1080p. Honestly, it's kind of weird that this phone has a higher resolution screen than the iPhone XR, but technically speaking, the iPhone 8 Plus release price was more than the iPhone XR, so that came out at $749, the iPhone XR. The iPhone 8 Plus is selling for $799 when it was just released, so about $50 difference there. So at least the iPhone XR is cheaper, but still it's the same price as the 7 Plus, 6S Plus, and 6 Plus release, so kind of weird. The cool thing is the iPhone 8 Plus does have IP67 dust and water resistance, but I want to tell you, if you're getting this phone used, make sure that the screen was never replaced by a third-party seller or anything like that. Make sure all the repairs go by Apple, because if you do replace the screen, that could potentially lose the water and dust resistance. So that is one thing to keep in mind. I would hate for you to get a phone and it end up like getting water in it and not working. That kind of happened with me not too long ago with my iPhone 10, so you kind of want to keep that in mind. Now, continuing on, one cool thing about this is that the phone literally just started getting a software update. So it started off getting iOS 11, which really wasn't the best of OS versions, but right now it has iOS 12. So in reality, I mean, this phone has a lot more years of OS versions left. So you can go get this phone now, you can get it next year or the year after, and still have a couple years of software updates left. So if you think about it, if you get this phone now, it already got iOS 11, it's going to get all of iOS 12, it's going to get all of iOS 13 and all of iOS 14 as well. It could potentially get iOS 15, I'm unsure. I feel like Apple's going to extend the iPhone 10 up to iOS 15, but I'm not too sure what they're going to do with the 8 Plus. They might keep it at iOS 14 because this is the last iPhone with a home button. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are, so I feel like they would kind of want to quickly move away from it and go towards a gesture design and there's gestures and everything, Face ID. But still, I mean, there's a time and place for this phone too, so who knows? I mean, maybe it'll get extended or not, but I wouldn't even be worried about software updates right now just because this phone still has so many more years left. And that kind of does lead me into the performance aspect of it. Now, this phone does have the Apple A11 Bionic chip. It has a hexa-core processor. It also has 3 gigabytes of RAM. And all those things mixed together, I mean, this phone is still very, very good in performance. And in some cases, I honestly think that the iPhone 8 Plus is somewhat faster than the iPhone 10. And I think that mostly has to do with the screen, because the screen is high resolution and it's technically bigger on the iPhone 10 than it is on the iPhone 8 Plus, With the iPhone XS, obviously the iPhone XS and XS Max were faster, but I ran a speed test against the iPhone XS Max, and I found that the iPhone 8 Plus really isn't that much slower. Of course, you're getting a higher multi-core score and just better performance on the iPhone XS Max, but honestly, if you get the iPhone 8 Plus, you're not going to have that bad of performance at all. I've had very good performance closing, opening apps, using tons of apps in the background, heavy intensive gaming, all those things. I mean, whatever you're going to do with it, it's not going to be a problem at all. I would say as long as you're not even comparing it to another phone, you probably won't even notice a huge difference between this or a XS Max, if I'm being completely 100% honest. Obviously, the XS Max, like I said, is faster, but as long as you're not comparing it, you're going to be perfectly fine and content. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that this phone also does have Force Touch, which is super cool. The iPhone XR is not going to have that, so that is another advantage to get an iPhone 8 Plus. So all those things you can use Force Touch with, whether that's multitasking between apps and Force Touching on the side, or pop and peek, or whatever that's called in the iMessages or whatever, you're going to be able to use that throughout the software, and everything is perfectly fine. So I think even intensive gaming, like I said, if you're doing Real Racing 3, you're not going to have any problems. If you're doing Nova or whatever have you, you can do anything with this phone. You're not going to have any problems. And that's one of the greatest aspects of this phone, is the performance. Now moving on, looking at the back, we do have a dual camera setup. So they're both 12 megapixel sensors. Only one camera has OIS, which is the left camera, I think, depending how you see it. It's the bigger sensor. And second camera allows you to zoom in further into a photo, which is super awesome. And I use that all the time on my iPhone 10. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the iPhone 8 Plus and even the iPhone 7 Plus is that secondary lens, which allows you to not only zoom into the photo, but also allows you to do things like portrait mode, portrait lighting, and all those cool little things as well. I really like it. I don't really have too much bad things to say about this camera. I'll say that in terms of the video resolutions, you are able to shoot 4K at up to 60 frames per second and 1080p videos up to 240 frames per second. So that was quite an upgrade from the 7 Plus. And I do think that this camera is very, very good. Whatever you plan on doing with it, it's awesome. You're not going to have too many complaints. Of course, the XS and XS Max is better. Even probably the iPhone 10 is better too. But between all of them, you're probably not going to notice a difference. The 8 Plus is still a very, very capable camera. And if you're scared for any reason about getting it, I would not be scared. You also have a 7 megapixel camera up in the front, which is able to shoot 1080p videos up to 30 frames per second. And again, it's a very solid sensor. Both cameras, both the back and the front, are very capable. And if you're scared for any reason about getting a phone like this because of the camera, I'm telling you guys right now, I think the iPhone 6s camera is still very good. So anything above that is awesome and it's game. So the iPhone 8 Plus is very good. But the iPhone 8 Plus is not perfect or amazing in every single category. I think one aspect that it really kind of, lacks in would definitely be the battery life. It doesn't have horrible battery at all, but it only has a 2,691 mAh battery. Now, to put things in perspective, the iPhone 6 Plus had an over 2,900 mAh battery, and the iPhone 7 Plus, which was just before this, also had over a 2,900 mAh battery. So they actually decreased the size quite a bit, up to 300, 400 mAh when they made the iPhone 8 Plus. And not only did they do that, but they improved the performance as well. And when you do something like that, you tend to have worse battery life most of the time. And this is the same case here. It's not horrible battery life. I think standby time is pretty good. But if you're using it, you're going to notice that it's probably not as good as the 7 Plus. And your XS Max will probably have better battery life than the 8 Plus. And same thing with probably the iPhone 10. The iPhone 10 has a bigger battery than this too, which is pretty sad because the 7 Plus has a bigger battery than the iPhone 10, but the iPhone 10 has a bigger battery than the iPhone 8 Plus. So you're spending more money for a smaller battery. And I never really liked that, but I mean, it is what it is. You could probably get a day out of it. On my usage, I could probably get a day and a half out of it, but I would probably be on really low usage. So I'd really recommend you guys, if you're really worried about battery life or anything, it's not a horrible thing. This phone does kind of accept fast charging, and it does accept wireless charging as well. So you can always put on a wireless charger and be good, but just know that it's a very good phone, but the battery life, it kind of lacks in a little tiny bit. Now, some other notable things to note, like I said, it does have Touch ID too. I love it. I like Touch ID more than Face ID, but Face ID is growing on me, so I don't hate Face ID at all, but dual camera setup on the back, portrait mode, portrait lighting. It does have wireless charging, like I said. It does have IP67 dust and water resistance, so if you dip it into 1 meter of water for 30 minutes, you'll be perfectly fine. Don't even worry about it. And it has a True Tone display, all those cool little things within iOS 12, and it's also getting iOS updates for a very long time, at least a couple more years. So is the iPhone 8 Plus worth it in 2018? I will say, obviously, the iPhone 8 Plus is still a very capable phone. It's not going anywhere for a couple years. I don't think it's a horrible phone at all, but I don't think it's the best phone either right now, especially if you want a phone that can, if you want to retain your Touch ID or whatever. If you want to save even more money, I would say the iPhone 7 Plus is very good too. Let's say you want to get an 8 Plus or whatever, get this phone 100%. I'm not saying you don't, but if you were me, this is what I would do. I would get an iPhone 8 Plus right now, and I would keep it for a couple months maybe, or even like maybe up until like February or something. Try to resell it and try to get an iPhone XS Max for maybe like $100, $200 more. And me saying out loud doesn't really make much sense now, but even going to an iPhone 10, if you can get an iPhone 8 Plus now, you can probably get one for around $350, $400. In a couple months, you could probably go around sell it. You could probably sell it for the same price, maybe a little bit more, but the iPhone 10 prices are also going to fall too. So I'd probably just sell it and get an iPhone 10 in a couple months to see how you like it. But if you love the iPhone 8 Plus, definitely go for it. But I kind of scheme a lot, so that's kind of like what I would do in that sense. But it is what it is, guys. Count how many times I said it is what it is. I said it like 40 times in this video, but I'll link an iPhone 8 Plus in the description if you guys want to pick it up. Definitely get it through that link in the description so you guys can go and help support the channel at the same time. It will mean so much if you guys could do that. And if you guys ever want to buy anything from Amazon or anything, definitely get it through that link. Like I said, it helps the channel out like crazy, but that is pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, if you think the 8 Plus is not worth it or you have a different opinion or whatever, leave it down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. Also hit the like button. Let's try to get 4,000 likes on this video. I don't know, that's like really high. I don't think we're gonna hit it, but let's try to do it. But make sure you hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. We're trying to get to 100 by the end of this year. It might happen. I hope it does happen, honestly. So let's try to hit that goal. So definitely hit that subscribe button. But also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, Alpaca. I talk way more about iOS reviews on these Plus version phones. So if you have an 8 Plus or a 7 Plus, 6S Plus, or 6 Plus, I do iOS reviews and battery tests and all those good things on that channel, speed comparisons on all iOS versions. So definitely check that link out in the description as well. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.